Um, Firstly, I'd like to ask you, Ben, have you seen this story that many councils around the country are still in the process of hiring COVID marshals, some of whom are being hired on the basis that they'll be required until at least 2023? In what way is that commensurate with us getting our freedom back on July the 19th? Doesn't sound like it, does it?
Well, yeah, I was a councillor in Hertfordshire for 7 years, and Hertfordshire has just approved £3 million worth of taxpayers' money to pay for these COVID marshals over the next 2 to 3 years. And it's not quite clear exactly what they're going to be doing because, of course, we were told by the government that come Freedom Day, okay, it's not going to be when we thought it was, but come that day, if it ever comes, that restrictions were going to be released and people would be asked to be responsible and do all the things that people are very capable in Britain and very likely to do without the need for enforcement. So the question, I don't know exactly what these people are going to be doing.
Exactly right, and the whole idea of COVID marshals flies in the face of what we actually need, and what Sir Desmond Swayne very eloquently said in Parliament yesterday, that it's time for the government to pass responsibility back to the people, that we should be responsible for our own safety, make our own decisions about risk and about what we want to do. And COVID marshals indicate that authorities all over the country actually do not want to hand us back responsibilities for our own actions, which is very sinister and very worrying, is it not?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you where I think we could use some COVID marshals, and that's at our border. Where we don't seem to have any real restrictions, and we haven't for a very long time. I mean, to be clear, the Bow Group was, I think, the first think tank in the United Kingdom to come out and call for border closure and restrictions as per coronavirus. And this was in January 2020. And our thinking, based on a lot of the medical evidence we were seeing, was that, as an island, if we can secure our border, and we can stop coronavirus getting into a significant degree, we have a chance, and we had a chance, to be like countries like New Zealand. Of course, that didn't happen. The virus got in at a great scale, but we do now have the issue of new variants coming about, and it's the new variants that have caused these delays. So I think if we do need COVID marshals, let's send them to the border, and let's make sure that new variants aren't coming into the country. But let's also realise that in this country, there has to come a point where the lockdown starts doing more damage than the coronavirus. And I think, although we have lacked any real study from this or evidence from the government, I think there's a very good chance that point is passed.
Indeed. Now, in terms of these variants, though, of course, the average virus has about 330,000 variants. So if they're going to keep throwing variants at us as a reason for continuing restrictions, we could be here until kingdom come.
Well, I didn't really know what was happening the other day because I was listening to a speech by Theresa May in Parliament, and I was agreeing with every single word of it.
I know, that's a very strange turn of events. A lot of us are going through this unusual experience right now, yes.
Well, it is. And look, credit where it's due. What Theresa May said, I think very sensibly, was, yes, coronavirus exists. Yes, it's very serious. Yes, actions need to be taken towards it. But we also have to accept that the reality is it's now here to stay. It's going to be like flu or any of the other myriad conditions that people sadly suffer from. And as such, we've got a decision to make. Do we want to spend the rest of our lives in lockdown, the rest of our lives not going overseas, the rest of our lives not seeing loved ones? Or do we want to say, like all the other risks, like getting in car accidents and getting the flu and getting all sorts of diseases, that is a risk of leaving the house and mixing with other people and going abroad and getting on with your life. But there has to come a time, I think, where people accept that risk, accept that new reality, and start to build a future on that basis. As you say, there will inevitably be new variants. There will be new variants almost certainly that the vaccines won't be effective for. But that is the new reality. And I think coronavirus is going to continue to kill people, and that is very unfortunate and very sad. I think if the government had taken action earlier, we could have prevented some of it. But now I think we need the sort of sensible thinking that Theresa May was advocating, of accepting the reality and finding a way to get on with our lives.
Yes, I mean, there may well be a surge if they do ever lift the restrictions. I wouldn't bet my house on that, but they still seem to be saying July the 19th we will get back to normal. There's bound to be a few more deaths, but that's exactly what we're going to have to learn to live with. We can't run this country like the Anti-Death League. We're going to have to accept that some people will die of this, and that millions of people getting their normal lives back is more important than that. It just is, isn't it, Ben?
Well, but the important thing is it's actually based on life, because I think the preservation of life is the most important thing. That is more important than making a bit of money or going down the pub. But in terms of preservation of life, estimates suggest that approximately 50,000 people have died because they haven't had the right cancer screening or haven't had the right cancer treatment. Rates of obesity are going up because people are obviously spending more time indoors. Mental health issues are skyrocketing, and there's a whole range of other conditions and damage to livelihoods that will cause death. So when I said we've now reached the point, I think, where the lockdown is doing more damage than coronavirus, I was talking in terms of loss of life. I think it is very realistic to now say that lockdown is killing more people than the coronavirus. So the government won't tell us what their figures are on that. There's a number of people working on their own predictions, and the Bow Group is one such organisation. But so the reality is that stark. It's not just about getting on with our lives. It's also about working out what is going to save more lives.
Indeed. Let's talk a bit about parliamentary democracy. Now, there were shades of the situation during the Brexit years yesterday, because the vote to extend the restrictions to delay Freedom Day until June the 19th was approved by a massive majority of 461 votes to 60. And this, of course, was because Labour have ceased to be the opposition when it comes to the coronavirus crisis. This is getting ridiculous, isn't it? The one set of people that Boris Johnson can rely on for absolute loyal, full support is the Labour Party. So what's going on with the opposition? And when, Ben, the hell is that Parliament going to get back to normal? There's only about 5 of them standing there in the House of Commons. We need that House of Commons to be functioning properly again, so the wheels of democracy can turn properly. Do you agree?
Yeah, well, I think you've made the point that this is likely to hit the poorest hardest in terms of the effects of lockdown. As you say, it's all right for people who are in huge houses and large estates so that they can wander around all day. But for the poorest in society, you've got real issues, I think, over job security. You've got real issues over being generally in lower quality housing, in lower quality environments where you've got a much greater likelihood of mental health issues. And really, Labour, at least they used to be, were the party that was standing up for the working man. And I've not really seen them make any great analysis or advocacy for the poorest in society, and how they're probably in most need of the country reopening. In terms of the Conservative rebels, 49 rebels is a lot in most parliaments. That was higher than a lot of the votes that defeated Theresa May. The problem is that the government now has such a large majority. And I said to Nigel Farage that I felt that it was a great mistake to stand down Brexit Party MPs, because obviously I'm a Conservative small c, I don't want Labour to get in. But I also don't want a modern Conservative Party with a massive majority, which is effectively a dictatorship, because you can have 50 very principled rebel MPs make their case very powerful in Parliament, and it counts for nothing because the government's majority is so high.
Yeah, and with the support of Labour, it's an absolute, it's a tyranny. And as I said earlier, this reminds me of the Brexit situation, when you get that overwhelming majority in Parliament saying, yes, extend Freedom Day, that does not reflect the feelings of the people. I mean, I know polls say that the majority do support an extension, but it's not a massive majority, and I don't quite trust those polls anyway. Millions and millions and millions of people out there, they want their lives back, and Parliament is not reflecting the feelings of the nation. And I think that is a serious problem going forward. Let's just keep our fingers crossed, Ben, and hope that July the 19th is the end of this nightmare. Thank you very much for your time tonight, Ben Harris.